So this is, one of the most, they say the most difficult, most important, and most tricky topic of income tax. Okay, because many people they are, when they are going abroad, they want to know what is their status because the status can change, your income tax liability. So a lot of people, pay a lot of money to really understand this, and whenever they seek, advice from a chartered accountant or a tax consultant to make a planning. So this is a very important topic. It is a little bit tricky, but simple. It's not very difficult. Of course, every time when I read, I always feel that I'm something reading new in my life. That's kind of feeling I get. So it's a topic like that, okay? But it is simple, and I've read it almost like maybe 100 times in my life. The things have changed, over 19 when I started doing my CA a little bit. So there have been a lot of changes which is happening over the time. So residential status and the effect of tax incidence. Now, that what kind of residential status you enjoy, it depends. What will be your income which will be taxable in India. Okay. So that Neerti, can you read? So, on what amount of income you have to pay tax, it depends upon your residential status and is very important. Okay. So this is self-explanatory. It says similarly whether an income earned by a foreign national in India or outside India is taxable in India depends upon his residential status. Okay, rather than his citizenship. He can't say that I'm an American citizen or I'm an Australian citizen. I don't have to pay any tax in India. So the tax will depend upon his residential status, which is governed by the income tax. Okay, not by his own laws of citizenship in their own country. So it is important for income tax department to determine the status, the residential status of a tax paying individual or a company. Now, an individual can have his own status, a company can have his own status. Okay, it depends upon there are various kinds of entities like partnership firms, individuals, Hindu undivided family, companies, societies. Everybody will have its own, status. Okay, fine. And there are some laws which may differ from, one another. So it becomes particularly relevant during the tax filing season. In fact, that is one of the factors based on which the person's taxability is decided. So it's a very important, kind of a knowledge which you should have. Why you should have? Because many of you would be working abroad, and once you are working abroad, you should know what you should, when you're going to where you're going to pay your taxes. Whether is it in India or abroad, and how your tax status can change from a resident to a non-resident. Okay, and what kind of accounts you need to maintain. You can't maintain an Indian account. Like, my daughter who left for England, so after some time, she was maintaining an Indian account, which is illegal. And then she closed that account, and now she has got two accounts, NRE and NRO accounts. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So, meaning and importance of residential status. Just read, Nirdi. So, for assessing whether the person is resident or non-resident, it depends upon the Income Tax Act, not on any other law of in India or abroad. Citizenship has nothing to do with the uh, the the residential status. Okay, I know that. So individual can be, either a resident or non-resident. Similarly, a foreign national can become a resident also in India and needs to pay all the taxes in India. So it will all depend upon what we are going to learn now. So how is residential status determined? Now, before we do that, there are for individuals in India, there are three kinds of status. The first one is a resident. Either a person can be a resident or a resident, not ordinary resident. Okay. And a non-resident. So there are three kinds of status. One is resident. We say ordinary resident or simply resident. Okay. Second is resident but not ordinary resident. Okay. And the last one is called the non-resident. Okay. Fine. So for the purpose of income tax in India, the income tax laws in India classifies taxable persons as follows. So please focus, don't go outside for just next half an hour and listen what I'm teaching, because it's very important and there'll be a lot of questions. Okay. So, and it's a very important and little bit tricky topic. So please pay attention. Okay. So a individual person can either be a resident or he can be a non-resident, or there is something in between which is called resident but not ordinary resident. So there are three kinds of status for each individual, for any individual. Okay. A person can be any one of them depending upon, the law which we are going to learn now. So the how to determine residential status. The taxability differs for each of the above categories of taxpayers, whether you are an HUF or a firm or a company or individual. Before we get into taxability, let's first understand how a taxpayer becomes a resident, or a resident but not ordinary resident, or a non-resident. So first we are talking about an individual. Okay. So now the most important part, the law. Fine. So this is the law we are going to understand. So please listen, okay? And we are going to do a lot of questions so that it settles down in your mind. So section 6(1). You don't have to remember sections. And the question which you'll be in the end term, the exam will be there. It will be a question paper which you have to solve. The questions will be out of the question which I have already done in the class, or only the figures can change, but the construct will remain the same. Okay, fine. And it will be a closed book because all the questions will be doing in the exam. Okay, so I'll be just taking you through all the questions which we have done, maybe during the last days of the lecture, so that you can just prepare the questions from those very topics. Okay, fine. But if I make an open book, then the question paper becomes very, very difficult because it will be coming out of something which you have never done. So you have to just, search and find the answers. And you can't use a chat GPT or something to find the answer. Okay. So you can just do it from whatever material you have on your laptop. You can't go to the internet. Okay. So a taxpayer would qualify as a resident of India if he satisfy one of the following two conditions. So there are two conditions which are given under section 6, subsection 1. So if he satisfies only one condition of the two conditions, he'll be classed. A taxpayer would qualify as a resident in India if he satisfies one of the following two conditions. The first, stay in India for a year is 182 days or more. Okay. So if he has stayed for 182 days or more in the year for which we are talking about his status, that is, suppose we are talking about 24-25, starting from 1st April 2024 till 31st of March 2025. So that is the previous year on which you have earned income and you are going to be paying taxes for this year, and you will be assessed in the next financial year, which is 25-26. Okay. So we are trying to find the status of a person, whether he is a resident or whatever, for if he has been present in India for more than 182 days in the year, like 24-25. So maybe all of students who are sitting here, including me, we have been there for 182 days or more, isn't it? So we are resident. By the first condition itself, without even going to further, we are all resident of India, because in the last 1 year, maybe somebody who was not there, I don't know, but he would be 182 days. If you are there for 182 days or more in 24-25, then you are resident for this year. Okay. The second is or. Stay in India for immediately 4 preceding years is 365 days or more. That means, forget that this year 24-25, before 2-24-25, the 4 years prior to this year, if you have been there for 365 days or more and 60 days or more in the relevant financial year, that means this financial year. इस साल में अगर आप 60 days रहे हो या ज़्यादा रहे हो इंडिया में, एंड उसके पिछले 4 साल में you have been there for 365 days, even if you satisfy this, you are a resident. Okay. So most of us, we are getting resident because of the first itself. But if a person has stayed for less than 365 days, suppose he has stayed for 60 days or more, okay, uh, and 60 days or more, then in that case, he will become a resident if he has been present in India for 365 days in the preceding 4 years. Is that okay? Fine. So if you don't meet any of the two conditions, Malaika, please listen. If you have not met any of the two conditions, then you are resident. Okay? Then you are non-resident, sorry. If you don't meet any of the conditions which is mentioned here, then you are non-resident. Yeah. Little louder. Just hold on. You always, jump the gun. I'm going to talk about that only in the next. Okay. So just hold on, because next slide is going to answer your questions. Okay. Fine. Okay. So here we are talking about two conditions, very simple conditions. If you meet any of them, you are resident. Okay. And if you don't meet any of them, you are a non-resident. Okay. Now, according to this section, an individual is considered as a resident in India for a financial year in any one of the following conditions are satisfied. Stay in India for 100, now I'm just talking about, again, it's the same thing. Stay in India for 182 days or more during the relevant financial year, or stay in India for 60 days or more during the relevant financial year and 365 days or more during the 4 immediately preceding financial year. So this is the same thing, but said in a little slightly different words. So the same section has been put in different perspective. Okay. So this is what we have learned. If you don't meet any one of them, then you're a non-resident. So maybe that I have just added this slide to my revised one, because I thought my first slide was giving little less information. So I just expanded a bit here. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, fine. A non-resident. So simple. An individual who does not satisfy both the conditions as mentioned above will be treated as a non-resident in that previous year. Is that okay? If you don't meet any of the conditions, you are non-resident. If you meet any one of them, you are a resident. Okay. But I told you there are 3 categories. So we have done a broadly resident and non-resident. Now we are going to break the resident into ordinary resident and not ordinary resident. Okay. Now, before we break that, the exemption, which, what's the name? Pranav. Pranav. Achha, Pranav Bahadur. So maybe I just forgot the other thing. Pranav Bahadur. Okay. He has a habit of asking questions, and it's a good habit. Okay. And he was asking a very relevant question. However, in respect of Indian citizen and a person of Indian origin who visits India during the year, suppose if you are a person like, like my daughter who's staying and my son-in-law who's staying in England, when they come to India for a visit, okay, so and they don't want to change their status. If they are non-resident, so they want that they should be non-resident. So during the year, the period of 60 days mentioned in 2 about shall be substituted for 180 days. 182 days. So that means they can stay in India for 182 days in the previous year and still their status will not get changed. Okay. This is only for the persons of the Indian origin. People who are Indian origin. Okay. If they visit India and they stay for even up to 182 days, their status is not going to change. Okay. So this is an exemption. Now, this exemption has been extended to 2 more sort of people, and they are very important. One of them is very important for us. Okay. The similar concession is provided to Indian citizen who leaves India in the previous year. Now, suppose you are leaving India and you are an Indian citizen and you are leaving because you are got a job outside. And most of the time, when we get a job, we just leave sometime in the middle of the year. Okay. Fine. So either you have got a job and you have got a letter appointment and you are moving outside, or you are a crew member. Okay, like suppose you are a Navy man or you are staying in a ship. So in that case, now the similar concession is provided to an Indian citizen who leaves India in any previous year as a crew member or for the purpose of employment outside India. Okay. So if you have, even if you have stayed for 182 days or less, it is not going to change your status. Okay. If you have stayed for more than 182 days, then only you will still remain the resident. Okay. Otherwise, if your stay was say 180 days or 160 days, then the status will change. Okay. If you are going abroad, just to tell you beforehand, suppose if you have stayed for 120 days in India and you left for a job, okay, then your status will change from resident to non-resident. Okay, fine. Is it okay? So we'll discuss that later. Just read this now, Nirdi.
India only if he stays in India for 180 days or more.
182 days or more.
For 182 days. And any financial year as a member of the crew of an Indian ship such individuals are allowed a longer
Okay, suppose if you're, this is I mean, instead of 60 days, it becomes 182 days. Now, these are applicable to the person who have got some job and they're leaving for an employment or a crew member, okay, and that has been defined. Now, normally, for students like you, I'll not cover the crew member, this thing, because it's not so important for people who are sitting here or the students. But, last time I was giving a lecture to the armed forces, and there are a lot of people who are from Navy. And so for this information is very important for them to understand the status. Okay. So now we'll be doing a small question to understand this. Okay. This law, when a person leaves India abroad after he gets a letter appointment. So what kind of income he has to pay tax in India? So any income which he's earning in India, and then will be earning an income abroad also because he got a job there. So what income will be taxable in India? What will not be taxable? Not taxable in India. So we're going to discuss that. But now, what happens, the government is making some changes over the time. So the law was pretty simple up to this time, but in 2020-21, they made a very important change. Okay, Nirdi, can you read that? Now, in case if your income in India is greater than 15 lakhs, and then you are leaving India for a job or as a crew member, then the time has been changed from 182 days to 120 days. Okay, fine. So if you have stayed more than 120 days, you will be still remain the resident. Okay, but if you have stayed less than 120 days, your status will change to non-resident. Okay, fine, and we'll discuss that more. And the income should be exceeding 15 lakhs. So if you are earning about 5 to 6 lakh rupees and then you're going, then 182 days. But if you have been earning an income, say 20 lakh rupees or 16 lakh rupees or 15 and a half lakh rupees, then in that case, the number of 182 days will become 120 days. Okay. Then the law has become a little bit more complicated thereafter. Deemed resident. Okay, there is another class which has been added in the same year of 220, 2020-21. Nirdi, can you read that?
in India.
No, there because there are, I mean, laws everywhere, and it can happen that you've been always traveling here and there, and you are resident nowhere. In that case, you don't pay tax anywhere. Okay, if that kind of situation arises for an Indian citizen, then he will be considered as an Indian citizen, a deemed citizen of India. If because of this law, he is neither the Indian citizen or not a citizen, or he is not paying even a tax anywhere, then he will be considered as a deemed resident in India. Okay, let's understand a little bit more. Okay, Nirdi. So that means here this deemed category, it will be only applicable if you have an income in India more than 15 lakhs. And second, you have some income from foreign sources and it is not taxable anywhere in the world. So if that is the situation, then you will be considered as deemed India. So I'm giving an example. Okay, so I'm giving an example here. Yeah, read this example.
Rahul is an as a freelancer, finding high services in multiple countries. Travel between different countries, but does not stay in any one country for a period long enough to be considered a tax resident there. He spends most of his time traveling between different countries, tax resident there.
Okay, so that means
Before financial year 2020 to 21, Rahul could have claimed to be a non-resident the residency criteria in India. That is staying in India for less than 182 days in a financial year. This would mean global income would not be taxed in India. However, with the amendment Rahul is not liable to pay tax in any other country, he will be deemed to be resident of India for tax purposes. This means global income will now be taxable in India and that he will not be able to claim NRI benefits just because he is not staying in India for long. This amendment was primarily introduced to prevent tax avoidance by individuals who structure their stay in a way that they do not become tax residents anywhere. That is stateless taxation.
okay, so these are things. Okay, there's some rules. Okay, that just read maybe. These are the rules, general rules.
The term stay in India includes stay in territorial waters of India, that is 12 nautical miles into the sea from the Indian coastline. Even the stay in a ship or boat moored in the territorial waters of India would be sufficient to make the individual resident in India. It is not necessary that the period of stay must be continuous or active, nor is it essential that the stay should be at the usual place of residence, business, or employment of the individual.
You know,
For the purpose of counting the number of days stayed in India, both the date of departure as well as the date of arrival are considered to be in India. Residence of an individual for income tax purpose has nothing to do with the citizenship, birth, or domicile. An individual can therefore be a resident in more countries than one, even though he can have only one domicile, place of residence.
okay, so these are the uh, now present we have individuals. So if I'll read this. If an individual qualifies as resident, the next step is to determine if he she is resident ordinary resident or not ordinary. So हमें पता चल गया दो condition है उसमें से one condition you meet, you are a resident. If you don't meet any one of them, you are non-resident. Now, if you have met the condition, any one of the conditions, now the next step is to find out whether what kind of resident you are, ordinary or not ordinary. Okay, he will be a resident and ordinary resident if he meets both the following conditions. So he will meet both the conditions. He has been a resident of India in at least 2 of the 10 years immediately preceding the year, immediately preceding previous years. Okay. He has, I'm just reading again, he has been a resident of India in at least 2 out of 10 immediately preceding previous years. That means going by the first, two conditions, if he meets any one of them for 2 years out of the 10 years, okay, fine, that's number one. Number two, uh, now we are saying that he will be resident or if he meets both of the following conditions. So that means he has to meet both the conditions to be classified as resident, ordinary resident. One, that he has been out of the last 10 years, 2 times he should be a resident, excluding the previous year. उसके पिछले 10 सालों में, okay? उसमें 2 साल में अगर आप resident थे, out of the 10 years, that first condition. Second, he has stayed in India for at least 730 days in 7 immediately preceding years. Okay. Therefore, if any individual fails to satisfy even one of the above conditions, he will be a resident but not ordinary resident. Okay. Now, as far as the number of days are concerned, the matter ends here. आगे कुछ और number of days नहीं है, बस जो थे वो यही थे law में. So the first was resident, second was non-resident, and second is breaking of resident into two parts, ordinary resident and non-ordinary. So if you have to be a ordinary resident, you have to meet both the conditions. That means of the preceding 10 years, I mean excluding the previous year, that is this year, उसके पिछले 10 साल में, if 2 times you have been a resident of India by the conditions which we have already seen, and second, that you have stayed for at least 730 days in the 7 immediately preceding year. Okay, leaving the barring the last 6 years, उसके 7 साल के अंदर, if you have been there for more than 70 days, so that's the second condition. So if you meet both the conditions, then you will be ordinary. Otherwise, you are not ordinary. Okay, so we'll do a question so that you can understand this more easily. Before we understand, let's understand a little bit more of this thing. Just read, maybe.
He need not pay any tax in India under government.
So that means if you are an ordinary resident, you have to pay all your taxes for whatever income you earn anywhere in the world. Okay. Now, once you become a non-resident or RNOR, that is the second category of a resident, which is not ordinary resident, then you have to pay tax only to the foreign income you have to pay in the foreign land, and for India you have to pay tax in India. Okay. Indian income you have to pay still in India, and for the income which you have earned abroad, you have to pay your tax abroad. Okay. Like suppose you become a non-resident, like my daughter is now a non-resident, now she has to pay whatever taxes she's earning. Now let's understand. Just one more minute, okay? एक question करेंगे उसके बाद ask करना. So there is little bit extra here that in case it happens that as per the law you are supposed to pay tax in 2 countries for the same income. Suppose if it happens like that, then there is a double taxation avoidance agreement. If we have an agreement with the country, then we can claim that and pay tax only in one country. Okay? Like suppose, for example, just read this name.
Also, note that in a case of double taxation of income, where the same income is getting taxed in India as well as abroad, one one may resort to the double taxation avoidance agreement that India would have entered into with the other country in order to eliminate the possibility of paying taxes twice.
Now, with most of the country in the world, India has this agreement, which is called the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, whereby, according to all these laws, if your income is taxable in England also, like in India also, then you have to pay tax only in one country, depending on what residency you have. So, there is a separate chapter. When we talk about this, and the question will be after this example. Let's talk about this. There are various examples which will now we choose how we question is still not still our question asked today. So just read this briefly.
Brett Lee, an Australian cricketer, visits India for 100 days in every financial year. This has been his practice for the past 10 financial years. Find out his residential status for the assessment year 2025 to 26.
So there's a cricketer we all know. Graduated about a few years back when he was coming to play IPL. Residency status for an individual who is a foreign national. Okay, just read Nidhi.
An individual considered a resident in India if he stays in India for 182 days or more in the relevant financial year, or he stays in India for 60 days or more in the relevant financial year and has stayed in India for 365 days or more for 4 financial years. The given information, Bradley visits India for 100 days financial year, and that he has been doing this for the past 10 financial years.
Now you know this guy Brett Lee. He's a foreign. But the first condition is not satisfied because he's not crossing 100. But the second condition that in the previous 4 years he is okay. In that, let's see. So यहाँ तक हो गया था? Okay. Okay, just please.
Relevant for AY 2025 to 26. He stays 100 days, which is more than 60 days.
Okay, so that means he has stayed for the first condition he is violating. Okay. Now what is the second?
In the preceding financial year 2020 to 21, financial year 2023 to 24, he has stayed 100 days into 4, which is 400 days.
So he stayed for more than number one. Last preceding he stayed for 400 days. The law says 300.
Since both conditions of the second rule are satisfied, Brett Lee will be considered a resident in the assessment year 2025.
Okay, hold on. So first condition was not met, 100. Second condition was not. So talks about
However, since he does not stay for 182 days or more in any single year, he will be categorized as a resident but not ordinarily a resident RNOR in India
yeah.
for 2025.
Final answer and then we
Resident but not ordinarily resident.
so that means he's a resident but not ordinary because he is making only okay.
He will be liable for tax in India on his Indian income only.
So as per this, he has to pay tax only for Indian income. Foreign income is non-tax.
Tax implications. Match fees, endorsements, and earnings he gets in India, like IPL payments, Indian sponsorship fees, etc., will be taxable in India. And income from Australia, like endorsements, commentary for Australian events or Australian investments, will not be taxed in India as long as it is unrelated to Indian operations.
Not ordinary resident. So that means his income which is will be taxed in India. And whatever income is if you resident. So that means whatever income he is earning outside, he has to pay tax out. So that's why, he will not be, liable to pay any income tax on his income. So this I just added to the revised slightly. The before that, which was coming from the CS period of stay during the previous year. Again, the same question we are looking from a different angle. So during the previous year, 100 days. Okay. Calculation of the period of stay during the 4 preceding years is 400 days. Okay. So this is how we are calculating the the stay of the for 4 preceding financial years. Okay. Barring okay.
So, like for the residents, there are two definitions. Under 100 days or 60 days, including 4 years, it should be from the company's days. But in meeting at but there have been for the 736 days.
That's why I'm just coming to this. Okay. Fine. So calculation of period stay, 4 preceding years forward. Okay. So Mr. Brett Lee has been in India for a period of more than 60 days during the previous year and for a period of more than 360 days during the previous year. Is that okay? So therefore, since he satisfied one of the basic conditions under section C, it's resident for the assessment year 2000. So it says that you are resident. But now we have to find whether he is a resident but not ordinary resident or simply a resident. Okay. Now we know that he has met one condition out of the section 6(1). एक condition मिल गई. So that means he is a resident. Now we have to ask the second question whether he is an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. Okay. Computation of now this had come. Computation of period of during 7 preceding years, which is 700 days. Okay, fine. उसके 7 सालों में he has to be there for he was there for 700 days and yeah. Whereas what is the this is how we have calculated. Okay. So what the law says? Since his period of stay in India during the last 7 previous years is less than 730 days, he is not ordinary resident during the assessment. So this is what we are looking at. Actually, I have got it right that there is a second information first answer which I just revised my slide. Okay? So here we have to go beyond that because we have found that he was a resident, but now we have to find whether he was a resident, ordinary resident, or simply a resident. So that means that we have to go for the second rule also. The second rule says that since his period of stay in India during the last 7 previous years is 730 days and he is not ordinary resident during the assessment year. Therefore, Mr. Brett Lee is a resident but not ordinary resident during the previous year assessment year. Okay. Is that okay now? So now we are looking for the second condition. And there is another condition that he has to, he meets either of the one condition. He actually, sorry, the second law was that he doesn't meet any one other condition. Okay. So he is not meeting the second condition. That means he is resident but not ordinary. अब वापस चलते हैं हम उस कंडीशन में देखते हैं जो था let's understand the second condition here. This is the condition. Okay. Just read this loudly.
Section C, subsection C, resident not ordinary resident. If an individual qualifies as a resident, the next step is to determine if he or she is a resident, ordinary resident, or RNOR. He will be an ROR if he meets both of the following conditions.
So that means both of the conditions should be met. Then only you become a resident and ordinary resident. Otherwise, you will be a non-ordinary resident. Okay. He has been resident in India for at least number one. So Bradley has met this? No. Because he was there only for about 100 days. So he has to be there for more than 122 days. He was not there. Second condition that he has stayed in India for at least 730 days in 7 immediately preceding years. Okay. So he is even not met this. So he is a resident but not ordinary because he stayed for only 700 days. Is that okay? Therefore, if any other individual fails to satisfy even one of the above conditions, he would be resident, not ordinary resident. Bradley has not even met this, nor met this. Why he has not met this? 182 days. आपने बोला 180 days. So you are not like 4 years. Fine. So that was the first, and then out of the 10 proceedings, they are only for 100 days. So the first condition not met. The second condition, he has stayed in India for at least 700 days. So how many days he has stayed? 700 days. So he has not met both the conditions. But he has met only one condition of the basic condition. So he becomes a resident, but not. So in that case, yeah. Another condition कहाँ में? He has been a resident of India at least 2 out of 10. He has not met. हाँ? अब मैं तो आप Indian वो है. मतलब 60 days, 60 days and what? Let's go back. So the first condition is stay in financially and 365 days or more before immediately proceeding. Fine. Stay in India for 60 days or during now you need resident. इसमें से दो केवल जिनकी मिलिट्री you become a resident. Okay, looking whether he is a resident or not a resident. This makes that he is a resident. Doesn't mean that you are not resident but not resident. That is not mixing that since he has stayed for 400 days, he has crossed 365 days. That's why he is resident. Okay. But now, whether he is a ordinary resident but not ordinary resident, then we have to look for the rule 2. Okay. There we found that he was not meeting any one of the conditions. Let's see. So he has been resident. No, ये नहीं करा. और यहाँ पर ये भी नहीं करा. Neither he has met this nor he has did. So he is a resident but not ordinary resident. Is that?
We are saying 2 out of 10 years, we mean that he is supposed to stay for 182 days for 2 years.
Yeah. 182 days.
Every year he is supposed to stay for 182 days.
I thought there was some more. This thing which you have to read. That's why, every time when you read the law, it looks like you're reading for the first time. That's it. That's why, every time people can challenge it. As an but actually when you read the law perfectly, you will find that he is a resident but not ordinary resident. So let's go back and see Brettley. Last wala. So maybe what I did from the chat GPT is not complete. So for my first answer, which was there in the unrevised slide, which goes beyond that. Okay, fine. So ये ठीक है. So the second part is more this thing. He will be liable to tax in India on his Indian income only. Okay, he will be liable for tax in India only for his Indian income. Whatever he is earning abroad, he has to pay tax for that income abroad only. Okay, if you become a resident, then you would have a big problem. Then his income in Australia as well as income in Australia will become taxable in India as well as in Australia. Then we have to go for the double taxation avoidance treaty and see what kind of a relief he can get. Okay, fine. Is that clear? Okay. Now the second question. Let's see one or two more questions. Okay, आगे पढ़ो. Just read, Ananya.
Mr. B, a Canadian citizen, comes to India for the first time during the financial year 2020-21. The financial year 2020-21, 21-22, 24-25, was in India for 55 days, 60 days, 90 days, 150 days, and 70 days respectively. What is the financial status for the financial year?
For the assessment year 2025-26, है ना? Is that okay? Usual financial year, assessment year. So he was a Canadian. He is a Canadian citizenship. Okay, remember he comes to India for the first time during 2021, and the number of days are given. Okay, just read this, Ananya.
To determine Mr. B's residential status for the 2025-26, we need to check under Section 6 of the Income Tax Act 1961. Basic condition to be considered residence: presence in India for 180 days, 2
during the relevant previous year. जो previous year है ना.
2024 presence in India for 60 days or more.
So this is the law for finding out whether he is a resident or not. This thing. So so stay in. Just read.
Second, stay in India for preceding 4 years, 2020-21 to 2023-24, 2020-21, 2021-22, 2022-23, and 2023-24. So total is 55 plus 60 plus 90 plus 100, which is equal to 350.
Which is less than 365 days. Okay. So since Mr. B has stayed for less than 182 days in the previous financial year and less than 365 days in the preceding 4 years, he is a non-resident for 25-26, isn't it? Is it okay? Because his total stay during the preceding 4 years was less than 365 days. We just calculated it was what, 350 days or something. And in the last financial year, he was there only for some few days. So it is not even, he doesn't qualify to be this thing. So he's a non-resident. Okay. So that means he won't be taxed for, he will be only taxed for his income in India. Otherwise, whatever he's earning outside will be paid outside. So anyway, we are not going to that. So let's do one more question and then we close it, which is more relevant. Just hold on, just hold on. Yeah. Which one? हाँ बस एक रह गया छोटा सा 1 minute. The class is up to 1 o'clock or 12:55. 1. So you can just leave. We will do it again. इसको कर लेते हैं. ये बड़ा important है. Just to take 1 more minute. Okay. So I just explained to you. Okay. We'll just cover it in 30 seconds. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen. We'll start from here next time. Mr. Ram, an Indian citizen, left India on 22nd of September for the first time to work as an officer of a company in Germany. Determine the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2025-26. Now, this is the case which you will make. You don't have, and you get a job from outside and you are living in India. Okay. So, what will be your status? And his income is below 15 lakhs. So that means 180 rupees will apply to you. Okay. During the previous year, Mr. Ram was an Indian citizen and he has stayed for 175 days, below 182 days. Okay. Thereafter, he left for India for employment. Since he does not satisfy minimum criteria of 180 days, stay in India during the relevant, he is a non-resident. So he becomes a non-resident. Okay. By becoming a non-resident, whatever income he is going to earn abroad will be taxed abroad. Isn't it? So that is what he wants. Otherwise, if that income becomes taxable in India, then he has to go for a double taxation. Okay? He is happy that he has stayed for only 175 days and he becomes a non-resident. Okay? So that's all. So we will start the same thing after we meet again. Okay. So the question is yet not complete. So the explanation is there. We're going to talk.